This is Lost in the Music by Tina Martyn on Tell Craig Your Story podcast.
Lost in the music. You're making me high, like Lucy in the sky. You know I got diamonds on the inside. Material girls just wanna have fun. Ooh, baby, it's a wild world, and we've only just begun. When tomorrow comes, it's gonna be a bright sunshiny day. All you need is love. Ooh, baby, I love your way. Oh, let me hear you say, whoa, lost in the music. Na 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 na. Lost in the music. Sugar, sugar, honey, honey, baby. You light my fire, make me go crazy. Oh, let me hear you say, whoa, lost in the music. Brown sugar tastes sweet, then I fall at your feet. I'm in a place called Vertigo, and suddenly I'm in too deep. Now I'm spending my time drinking red, red wine. I'll take a ride on your disco stick. I kissed a girl and I liked it, yeah. You got a fast car, babe. Oh yeah, life in the fast lane. I want to fly away, so I'm leaving on a jet plane. Oh, let me hear you say, whoa, lost in the music. Na 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 na. Lost in the music. Sugar, sugar, honey, honey, baby. Light my fire, make me go crazy. Oh, let me hear you say, whoa, lost in the music. Summer breeze makes me feel fine. You know I'm bad, but I'm staying alive. Remember that summer of '69? I could suggest this girl if I could turn back time. Oh, let me hear you say, whoa, lost in the music. Na 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 na. Lost in the music. Sugar, sugar, honey, honey, baby. You light my fire, make me go crazy. Oh, let me hear you say, whoa, lost in the music. All I wanna do is make love to you, make you feel my love. Say you love me always, and I'll stand by you. Call me anytime you got a friend, somebody to love. Come and be a hero, go again. Oh, let me hear you say, whoa, lost in the music. You're making me high, like Lucy in the sky. You know I got diamonds on the inside.
Hi guys, Craig here. Welcome to another edition of the podcast, Tell Craig Your Story. Before we start, I want to just send best wishes out to all my friends in China. Please stay safe. Please keep in contact with us. On a good note, I would like to say that we're finally on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, so please go to that website and search for Tell Craig Your Story. We're also on Google Podcast, Spotify, etc. Okay, so my guest today is an ARIA nominee. She has won a Golden Guitar at the Tamworth Country Music Festival. It's none other than my good friend since kindergarten, Tina Martyn. All right, so here we go. This is the interview that I had with Tina in January on Tell Craig Your Story podcast. Tina, how are you?
Craig, I'm great, mate. Lovely to hear from you. It's been a little while.
It's been a very, very long time. I was just trying to remember earlier how long. When was the last time we actually met? I think I went out with Yasser when he was in Newcastle as well, and
Might have been a
we
catch
all
up at Honeysuckle, something around
yeah,
like that.
honeysuckle. But when was it? 5, 6 years ago?
It's probably a little bit longer than that, but I think we're planning to catch up and do some American escapades and go from one side to
Oh
the other.
yes.
And we were going to, get this road vehicle and RV thing. And we're going to drive ourselves across Route 66 and bring
Yes.
guitars in the back of the vehicle and just, stop along the roadside, write songs, get inspired, climb up some mountains, whatever. And yeah, and just do it. And maybe we
That's
could do that one day, but it just didn't happen. But
maybe
that's okay.
maybe.
You inspired me to go on my own escapades, and I ended up going to the US anyway. And
Oh, did you? Yes.
yeah,
And you went with your
it was,
sister, and you caught up with Yasser as well.
yeah, we did catch up. And Yas, being as awesome as he is and as generous as he is, he managed to organise for me and my sis to go to the Magic Castle in LA, which was pretty
Wow.
awesome because you've kind of got to go knock and the door will open and kind of like scenes out of a labyrinth, and bookcases move and owl's eyes and picture frames are doing weird things and following you around the room, and there's all these secret doorways, and then there's magic acts behind the curtains, and then you've got this beautiful, like, almost sort of, yeah, a succulent meal, beautiful Californian wines, and then you go back
Mm.
down into the castle and watch the next magic show. So it was very, very Hollywood, but it was it was awesome. You weren't allowed to take photos in there. It's got this real kind of yeah, you can knock and the door will open and you're in this scene of labyrinth or something. But that was really wild. And yeah, there's either lots of musicians going, there's
Mm.
actors. Um, yeah, Neil Patrick Harris, I think, was on the board of the Magicians Society. So yeah, it was just great to see Hollywood and showbiz a different side of. Yeah.
And you went to Napa Valley as well because your business is in the wine industry.
Yeah, Napa Valley. It was interesting trying to learn to drive a car on the opposite side of the road. It took
How did
about
you
3 or 4 days of, yeah, my sister kept taking photos of me while I'm like looking like a stressed bunny. And I was red like a beetroot, as we would say down under. Faces bright red. And finally I did conquer it, but, you know, yeah, it's really different. But no, it was so good because there's like 850 cellar doors in Napa itself, but then you've got Sonoma, and then you've got other regions within Napa, and then there's some further south and more north, and the Russian River and Paso Robles as you're coming down the coastline. So yeah, the states, they love their wine.
Yes.
They love their entertainment, their musicianship. I love the way they love us Aussies too. I got a whole
Oh
lot of
yes, of
uh,
course.
like, come back, y'all, and I mean, but oh, good for you. Whenever I talk
Uh,
about music or wine or just how cool it is to be an Aussie, um, we had this camaraderie. I just loved it. So yeah, no, I'd love to do that all again. But yeah, it's awesome. The wine industry over there, um, yeah, the bottle prices are pretty expensive.
mm,
Um, but yeah, no, the quality, yeah, really beautiful Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, and some excellent Cabernet French style Bordeaux blends. So yeah, I'm very impressed.
wow, very nice. The one good vibe that I got from Los Angeles, particularly, is that uh, when you went there, there wasn't a lot of people that I met that were actually born in Los Angeles. They were, oh, I'm from Detroit, or I'm from Chicago, and it's like, what are you doing here? And it's like, well, I'm here to become a musician. I'm here to become an actor. Or I want to be something creative, and I just love that. I love hearing people's stories on how they've come from the countryside, and even if it doesn't work out, at least they're giving it a go. I love that. Did you get that
Wow.
sort of
Well,
vibe as well?
totally concur with you there, Craig. Even just at the hotel, we picked a fabulous place to stay for a few days, the Hollywood Roosevelt
Oh,
Hotel,
wow.
and by poolside one afternoon while we're just enjoying the last few days in LA. The wait staff, beautiful girls coming over, taking your drinks orders and being very attentive. And there's one girl, she kind of looked like a modern day Marilyn Monroe, and
Right.
but she actually was Australian. She was from South Australia, but she's
Wow.
been living in the States for quite some time and trying to get her start with acting. And she was only maybe 20, world's her oyster. But,
Yeah.
like you said, waiting tables, waiting for that big dream to happen. And that's good because that's what I've learned. You've got to go hard or go home, and
Right.
go for broke because, my good friend growing up playing, making music, touring with Keith Urban, I saw the same things with Keith. It was kind of like he kept doing it when everyone else probably had to run off and get a day job like myself. And
Yes.
he just was unwavering in his faith. And well, it was getting hard because he did have conversations with me at one stage of the game saying, look, when I'm coming back to the States all the time to try and break in, I'm performing to six people, Tina, and then
Yeah. Yeah.
every every half an hour, I remember this gig, and many like it. One person leaves the bar room, and I'm singing to five people with my three-piece band at the time called The Ranch, and which Jerry Flowers is still very faithful, amazingly talented bass player.
That's
Um,
great.
and Jerry was with him to see all that too. And then the fifth person walks out, the fourth, the third, and so forth until he says, for the last half an hour of the gig, we are just singing to the bartender. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm losing my mind. What am I doing? But this is this is all I know what to do. This is what I love to do. But it's certainly that took nerves of steel to just keep pushing through. And I'm just so happy. I'm really proud that he did it because life is too short. We had this little chat before about it's 2020. We're all getting a little bit older, and it's about seizing the day and
Yeah.
opportunities. But sometimes you don't know. It's like sliding door moments. The door closes, and maybe you should have took that way. You take another way, but I think it's all just a great learning curve, and it's yeah. Whenever you want it, ready to learn great life lessons, it's inspiring, and you're going to take that with you for the rest of your journey. So
Yeah.
yeah, I feel really lucky that I've met some really wonderful people
Yeah.
um, that
And
that
that
have
and
kind
that
of have
was the
shown me that, well, yeah, sometimes to the point of craziness. But then there's times when, like, I was meant to be performing at a gig yesterday,
Mm.
and our drummer, I've got a three-piece band at the moment. We're called Pretty Irresistible,
All right.
and we we're an all-girl band singing all-girl hits. But I'm also still writing some songs at the moment, and there's
Okay.
a studio space that we're putting some tracks, aside. We've done some recordings in the past, and we want to look at our options. And we're just loving making music. But yeah, that performance couldn't happen uh, for one reason or the other. And then I got to be somewhere else with a dear friend I hadn't seen for a very long time, and I heard all these life lessons and stories and things. I had to get that message from my dear friend.
Yeah.
Um, but I wasn't meant to be there. I was meant to be somewhere else. But that's okay. The gigs will come and go, but that's
Yeah.
great. They're there, and your connections with people, well, yeah, it's all pretty important.
And you know what, Tina, that's the thing that it sort of inspired me to do this podcast thing. I've met so many interesting people in my travels. Like I've been fortunate enough, and same with you, fortunate enough to go to different cultures, different countries, and meet all these interesting and amazing people. And that's what this whole podcast is all about. The people that I've met I want I want the people to know, the stories that they have, and some of them are just amazing. So that's why I asked you, because I'm not meeting you for the very first time. We have a very, very long history. um, we went to school together. We're in the same year. We went
We
to,
did, and I even
yep.
found a photograph of you in front of the in the shopping centre mall when we did a performance of Shay Shay Kool-Aid.
Oh,
Trying to
really?
remember how that song went. Uh, Shay Shay Kavisa Kofi Salanga Kakashilanga
Yeah,
Kum
yeah, yeah.
Madai Day. It came back to me.
Oh,
Could you
wow.
believe it? A song that we sung and danced to as year one, year two grade, and the power of music, it came back to my head. I saw that image and it
Yeah.
evoked all those memories, and I was like, wow, like, yeah,
But,
sometimes the human
but
brain can keep a bit of info up there, but music's
yeah,
so powerful, and I've only learnt that as I've got a lot older in life, because I used
yeah.
to think, oh well, this seems kind of easy and neat and cool, and I'm not, is this, am I allowed to just make music? But music really is, it's really powerful, and that was just one of those stories where, yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't leave your mind, it doesn't leave your memory sometimes. Pretty, that's powerful.
And even before that, like even when we met for the first time, like in kindergarten, I do believe that my mother and your father actually went to
Went to
school
school
together as well.
together. Yep.
Wasn't High, is that correct?
Yeah, good old Wallsend High, now being renamed Callaghan College, for your
Sounds
information,
very,
Craig.
well, it's very posh, doesn't it? Very posh.
Well, obviously
Cali-
they would have got they. I know, they're stepping up in the world. They obviously wouldn't still be singing the original "We of the Wallsend High," which is what we used to do with Mrs. McLaughlin.
Oh yes.
But I'd say the song would have changed because it's not Wallsend High anymore.
Oh, that's
But
making.
look, that's all good. That's all good. Yeah, I actually, the music teacher that's there today teaching, he's a really good muso mate of mine. His name is Brian McVernon. So I'll give him a shout out because he's a really cool guy to know. And he actually told me about his stories. He's hung out with Sir Paul McCartney, and
Oh wow.
yeah, yeah, backstage of the Saturday Night Live, because he's got other connections, people who know people, and you just, some days the circle's pretty small, and all of a sudden, like myself, I was backstage when Shania Twain first came down under and did her first tour in the late 90s. And yeah, I got to meet all these really fabulous people, and I got to, it was like once you started, you knew a tour manager or a tour, the backstage hand, or it was like Keith, I knew his manager at the time, and then, you could just contact these guys and try and, you know, be really nice to them and try and get a favor and get a few photos with your favorite star, and away you go. And then sometimes it can end up more than that, like for you as well, Craig, with your
Mm,
stuff with, the Metallica gods.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, life can really, yeah, take you some groovy places. But yeah,
Like you said before, if you have a passion for it, and same with Keith Urban, like if you have a passion for it, and you have a dream, just go for it. Just try. Don't listen to what other people have to say. They have their own lives, and just if you want to do something, just go and do it. If it doesn't work, well, try again. So I like these stories that you're bringing up. So for people that, especially for the people listening in China, a little bit of background about why I've selected you. Not only we are longtime friends, but uh,
yay, woo.
but in like looking back at it, you were like the first sort of musical star that I knew in person. Later
Wow.
on, I met more, but yeah, like you at school, you were always doing the national anthem. You were you were singing your songs, even in primary school. I can remember, you'd bring your guitar in, and you were with your father, and then
Yes.
yeah, and then
And
it
he had
just
to actually play. He had to play my. Can you remember how daggy some of these old memories and photographs are? But they're really cute looking back now because, my dad is playing my hot pink knockoff Fender Stratocaster. It wasn't even a proper Fender because, I was a kid, and your parents probably think, oh, you might pick this thing up for a year or two, and then you might throw it away, and it might not take off. But so
you
Dad
still
had
have
this
it.
little. I've still got that first hot pink
Oh, come on.
guitar with a 3-ply, the white scratch plate. Yeah, but I actually think it might be 3/4 size. So when I look at the photos of Dad, it's like right up around his neck, and you know, kind of. Nowadays guitar straps are a lot lower, and my guitar collection is a lot cooler. But probably nothing wrong with a pink Stratocaster anyway. But yeah, if we're speaking guitars, and I got a Dan Electro, a Jimmy
Very nice.
Page 1959 NOS Plus with those cool groovy lipstick pickups. And to learn about this guitar while I've been waiting for a shipment to come over from Korea, which is where they're actually made today, that the Beatles and let me see. There's been the Traveling Wilburys. You'll see um, George Harrison and Jeff Lynne playing Danos across all the film clips and across their record as well. So yeah, there's some instrumental people that played Danos, but they're like literally made of masonite, and there's vinyl wrapping around them, and even the bone nut, or the nut on the headstock nut I should say, is actually made of metal, and they're very cheap materials because they used to be sold through Walmart as a kiddie's guitar for like $20 as a toy guitar. And
All
the
right.
Beatles were one of the first bands to make that cool because they picked one up and thought, wow, it actually records pretty good. Maybe we could do something with this. And then obviously the price rose a little bit more, but it was great that they didn't become unachievable for anyone who wants to have that sound and be creative. So that's been something I've been enjoying, the challenge of you know listening to the sonic qualities of different
Mm,
musical instruments, and then just working out what my sound needs to be, because back
yes.
when you saw me at school, um, yeah, they were. I mean, I was buying guitars just because they looked cool or groovy, and that's fine. You got to have
Yeah, of course.
you gotta have the vibe, and you've got to have your sound image going on. But I tell you what, if you're playing a tree trunk and you're losing your hand dexterity, and you're going to fail that next solo because you're just cramping,
Yeah.
and you haven't really spent that time to, it's like BB King with Lucille. You got to name your baby. You
Mm,
got to really get intimate, and
yes.
I I'm learning so much, and I should have probably already learnt this 20 years ago, but it's like it's really refreshing now that I'm really been doing it so long, that I'm learning some great stuff about setting up your guitar and even string gauges. I'm still experimenting on string gauge, and I've
Yes.
recently reconnected with an old muso guru who's based in Glebe in Sydney. For your listeners that may or may not know, Glebe is right in the heart of Sydney itself. And this guy sets up guitars for Tommy Emmanuel, Ian Moss, who's the lead guitar player of
Legend.
Legend of Cold Chisel.
Chisel.
If you do or do not know that band, yeah, you'll see them all over Wikipedia and the internet
You're
for
living on
Australia.
you're living under a rock if you're from Australia and you don't know Cold Chisel.
Oh, and Mossy, just my dear friend, and I'll give him a plug, Alan Rigg. Maybe his phones will be ringing off the hook now that we've had this conversation, but he needs paying forward, because I'm sure that all the cool cats know who he is, and maybe he's their best kept secret. But um, Al, he's like the guitar whisperer, in my opinion, because I literally just spent a day with Al a couple of weeks back, and I sent him an email about all my babies, and gave him all their names and all the things I thought I wasn't as happy with all some things that have changed with the instruments. And he just, yeah, we got talking about Mossy, that he'll go into Downtown Music, Allendale Road in Sydney, and he will buy each string gauge separate. He will not buy a standard
Wow.
packet and just throw that on. It's so important to work out the type of player you are. And look, what Al was saying to me, for a chick, and I've got rather small, fine bone hands and small features, but I actually play really hard. And Al said I play a lot harder than him and a lot harder than a lot of the guys that
Right.
he takes, that he's looking after their instruments. And he watched me play, and we were
So
debating
that
string gauge, and
is
he
that
was
just
like,
a,
yeah,
oh, sorry, Tina. Was that
no,
just a
all good.
style that you developed, just
It
playing?
is
Like,
actually, yeah. I think
mm,
though, starting so early, back with the pink knockoff Fender Strat,
mm,
um, of course, I'm more influenced back then by my guitar teachers at the time. And I did change teachers as well when I got a little bit older. I went to someone else. So I've started with a much more softer approach, and just the way I even hold the plectrum.
mm.
And I've always been one of these people that I've got to play with the plectrum. It's funny, but it'd be great if I didn't have to. But then again, I just make it work for me. I'm just really comfortable with that. I just love getting a lot of front on the note, and I actually do
Gosh.
what Keith Urban does. I flip the the plectrum, so I don't play with the pointy end with the fat.
Mm.
It's the crisscross part that, and I only favour one particular company. I just love Jim Dunlop 1 millimeter plectrums, because it's
Classic.
it's it's a real gritty bit that you'd normally hold with the finger. And like how when
Yes.
I played as a kid, I'm just getting that little soft end of the plectrum, and the playing is more polite and it is light. Now, look, you do need to do some of that sometimes. Definitely for acoustic guitar parts that are more graceful and more inside.
Yes. Of course.
I'm changing the plectrum. I'm going for something a little bit thinner than a 1 millimeter, um, and made of different material. But as far as any electric for me, those Jim Dunlops turned upside down, and the attack you get, and it almost rips across the string because it's not hitting the soft part of the plectrum. So I just get off on getting that front to the note, and if I've got the string set up in a way where the gauges are heavy enough on the top three, sorry, the bottom three strings.
Yeah.
So yeah, the E and the yeah, and the A and the yeah, and then I leave the G, the B, and the E string and top strings much lighter gauge. So I actually
Yes.
use hybrid packets. I'm not as dedicated as Mossy to keep buying every single string in its own packet and then just making up my own as I go. I love the hybrids. I love having really light gauges of like nines, 11s, and 16s on the top. But then I want the heavier gauge that would go with, the heavier sort of 10 or 11 packet strings. So they'll go up to, 47 for the bass E. So
Yes.
they're all a lot thicker. And that's been a huge development recently, just to kind of work
Mm.
out the gauge of the strings, and then understanding the instrument as well. I really think that will really help a lot of people. I have people come up after my gigs, a lot of guys usually, they're just checking out my hands and how I play, and they're
Mm.
pretty complimentary. They have a chat, uh, and a lot of them would say, "Oh yeah, I don't like this guitar. I want to get rid of it, and I don't have a Gibson or an Ibanez." And I'm like, "No, these guitars are pretty good guitars you've got.
Yeah.
If you haven't had a proper setup before,
That's
and
right.
you're going to just sell it off, you just don't know. The neck might not be warped or bent. You
Yes.
might just need to try, a rod adjustment where, you just tweak it back to, maybe the Allen key was turned the opposite way, like it was on my necks as well. So I've been playing with them for 12 months, sitting just horribly wrong. So yeah, that will inspire your audience and everyone that comes into my world now, to
Yes.
encourage everyone to enjoy to make music, and it's got to feel good in your hands.
Of course.
Um,
Yeah.
but but most of the time of like the height of my career and the big gigs I had, I was playing with archaic instruments, really. Like, I don't know how I
Right.
pulled the sound I did. It was just sheer
Yeah.
passion. And
Yes.
and look, even Butch Cassidy talked about no, sorry, Butch from Garbage, famous, you know the dude,
Yeah.
producer of Nirvana's albums,
Yes.
and he talked about Kurt's acoustic guitar, like that it was a pretty cheap lefty guitar at the time that they had to just cleverly mic up in the studio to get a great sound and tone. But so still, you can still have a vibe from a certain instrument. You don't be limited on what you've spent for it. Um, and also, it's about getting clever with how you pull that sound. And my little bits worth is just making sure it just feels great, because I just think you'll play with more vigor, you'll attack more, um,
Sure.
yeah, your cup will run us over.
Well, yeah, you've got to be comfortable on stage as well, and if you're a major performer, you're going to be playing for an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. So you want to make sure that sound is very important. Like you said, you can have the most expensive equipment, but if it doesn't sound very good, or it doesn't fit yeah,
Your
sometimes the
thing,
cheaper
yeah,
yeah, sometimes the
yeah,
cheaper version, you can get a great sound out of it, and so it just depends all on your thing.
yeah.
Great answer, by the way.
Thank you.
Um, so let's go back. Let's go back. At the start of your sort of music career, your dad's been very, very influential in your career. Tell us about. Did he have bands? Was he musically? Was he a musician? Tell me about that.
Well, dear old dad, Pete, Peter Martin, he ended up stepping up to becoming like an amazing guitar technician for me as a younger adult and as a child, and stepping up to the point where, look, he wasn't in bands. Dad's inspiration was trying to play acoustic songs and record them on a cassette tape to woo my mum back in the early days in the late 70s. So that's the long and short of it.
What a
Um,
smooth
but
criminal
then
he
dad,
is.
yeah, but he's one of four boys, the Martin brothers, and they lived in John Street, in the house his dad built. And he went to our school, the Wallsend High. Um, yeah, and after just tinkering around and then doing his own mixed cassette tapes as well for mum, yeah, he always had a guitar in the house, and there was times when he would be inspired and he'd pick it up and tinker away. And he's ended up probably seeing that my passion went maybe to the next level, where I just kept picking it up more and more, and my voice, me and my sister Corinne, we just naturally always just could hold pitch really well, and we had really good ears and intonation, and
Yes.
we're just very blessed because obviously you can work on your voice with the right vocal coach to increase your, I keep saying that word, vigor, but your, obviously, your match fitness, so that you can perform longer and harder, and have a lot more strength. But the tonality of your voice, I think that's a very unique thing that an ear, nose, and throat specialist that took a look. He said he was raving to me, saying, "Oh, you're the shape of your soft palate is just so beautiful." I was like,
What a
"Okay, what do
compliment.
I do with that?" But that's
Is
just
that
a
a pickup
physicality.
line? Is that a pickup
Yeah,
line or
I
something?
hope not. He was old enough to a great grandfather, but he must have knew what he was talking about, because he was in the job a long time. So obviously the shape of your palate, even like the the way your teeth are, the shape of them as well, and how that sound's going to reverberate and kind of come in and out of that palette in that area. It's like recording in a room and then putting plate reverb on it, and and just how you can keep shaping sounds just by the spaces you're recording in. So you can see there's a lot of merit to that. So I think we're just lucky, mum and dad as a combination, me and my sister, just naturally, it just kind of fell out of our mouths. And I was learning and infatuated with weird eclectic kind of music, like some great groovy stuff from mum's influences as well, of like David Bowie, Rolling Stones, Beatles. So just naturally hearing a lot of that around the house was fantastic. But also mum and dad both really loved Linda Ronstadt. So it was because it was the time really. So I just naturally, as a really little kid, felt like I was almost emulating or mimicking her voice because I had the power and the kind of, it was easy for me to achieve some of that tone, and I could kind of slide into her songs. Obviously not maybe Blue Bayou, because that's quite a song to sing, but most of her other repertoire, it just felt easy and natural, and I enjoyed it. And then, of course, listening to her led me down the whole getting into country music side of it. And Dolly Parton, kind of this all come up. And she's amazing. She's written like 3,500 songs and can play 13 instruments. Oh, my God. You go, Dolly. You're quite the lady. She's amazing. And just so humble for it as well. Like I watched an interview, of many interviews, but she quoted something, Dolly, about her dad pulling her down a peg or two when she was much younger, because they'd created a statue of Dolly when she started to really become famous for the first time. And she was like real, proud as punch and telling everyone. And her dad had turned around and said, Dolly, don't you go getting a swelled head now, because you're just another outhouse for those pigeons. So her stories, the woman, like every colorful moment in her life, and then all the sad times when, coat of many colors, and she's teased for the way she looks and her family because she's different and they're very poor, but she didn't see it that way. So it is really having a beautiful mindset, can kind of take you into a wonderful space to be a great songwriter like Dolly, and using that as fodder, all the things you got to go through in life. It's that's how I think I'm hopeful that I'll continue to be able to write songs. I have moments where all of a sudden feels like it dries up a little because I got to keep doing other things in my life to survive, and I want to have more time to just be dedicated to music again. But when I am, I just feel like I've just got so much more to say, and I'm loving to play again, and just music's just, I think for me, just it's come in cycles, in waves of emotion, and I'm in a really great space. And I just finished writing a song actually for my wedding, but Eddie doesn't know. Thank you, but he doesn't know. But hopefully he doesn't hear the podcast before the big day. But that's our little secret. No, all good. But I'm just loving that I had a song that I started to write a very long time ago, and I knew it was going to be a great wedding song, but because I wasn't actually going through the process of being married, I think I just kind of missed the mark, and I was overcomplicating some of the verses with my ideas, and it just never gelled. I had this amazing chorus that was just felt so simple and perfect, but I just the song didn't flow and it didn't run. So I hope for anyone out there listening that it's living proof that you can actually go back and revisit a wonderful idea when you're newly inspired. And lo and behold, I've just only a few nights ago written a brand new verse 1, verse 2, and a bridge section, and it's so powerful now, and it's still quite simple, and literally just talking through all the things that are about to happen to me on my big day. But I wasn't going to get that unless I was living it as I wrote the song. Yes. So music, well, it's feeling really powerful to me at the moment. So I hope, the listeners out there will feel inspired to, don't that you might have had a great little idea. And look, Brian Adams talked about it a lot, that he reckons he wrote some songs that weren't as good as others, but I think he's probably being very nitpicking, because he's written a lot of great
Little
stuff.
modest.
Very modest.
Summer of
But obviously
'69. Anybody?
I know. And he used to say as well that he was just so humble and happy that if my music just covers the rent,
Yeah.
then that's enough for me. But I'm glad he took it to the next level and didn't
Yeah,
just
of
rest
course.
on
Yes.
those laurels.
He's made a lot of
Because
people very happy with his music, definitely.
I know. So, and I got to readjust as I'm still growing and learning, but getting older, but that's okay. Um,
But
but yeah,
Tina, it's music is ageless. You should be able to play music. In your dying days, like you still be able to pick up a guitar, or that's what's so cool about being a musician and just uh, playing, just being able to pick up a guitar on the beach or something like that and just play music. So
and
yes,
to be able to give that gift to, just like my friend last night, that I got to be at her party for her birthday gathering, which
yes.
fell on Australia Day, which is always pretty nice. Um, and I mean, I just picked up her $60 acoustic she bought off Gumtree, and and it wasn't too bad. The action wasn't that great, but it actually, for what she spent on the guitar, it's, it's pretty good. So I just got inspired and I started playing all the stuff, and she was just blown away. And then I looked over and she's bloody bawling and blubbering. And then next minute I changed the material around, and then she's joyous and happy and going rah rah rah, and like yeah. And she just couldn't stop talking about just how awesome it was to have me there, just that I could, you know, just give my gift back to her. And she felt really special that I sort of gave her that on her birthday. Um,
That
yeah, and I maybe I always underestimated that my whole life as well. That's my gift, and it's nice if people
that's
enjoy it, and that's
that's
great. It makes
good.
me happy
You
to make
may
people happy.
Yeah, you're making a lot of people happy, Tina.
Yay!
I want to ask. Let's just go back a little bit. When you were at school, the pressures of getting a good education, wanting to pursue your music career as well, and then the sort of like the peer pressure as well. How did that go for you, like when you were first starting off and when you were sort of getting popular in music?
Well, the peer pressure bit was interesting.
Mm.
I think
Did that
I do
drive you?
remember. I do look. Well, I do remember walking across in between A block and B block, across the asphalt there, and two-story buildings, long corridors. There's people lifting up sash windows and yelling out a few obscenities my way, and I'm not even noticing until I hear them, and then I turn around and look up.
Yeah.
Um, and it was just more silly things about um, yeehaw, it's country. Um, Marty, the country singer, Yeehaw, Marty Gras. They
Mm.
just create nicknames, really, because that's what kids do, but that's all right. Um, the other one that was a bit disheartening was to hear a few people yell out, "I wouldn't pay 5 cents to watch you sing or perform."
Oh
That
wow.
was a bit mean. That was a bit mean. But look, in the end, I've took that with me, not in a negative way
Yeah.
whatsoever. Look, I
You
I start I started to see it quite differently. That uh, look, I actually wasn't in music just to have everyone look at me and go, "Oh yeah, she's really full of herself, isn't she?" Now it was just literally for the craft of being a great performer, and obviously
yes.
being intuitive with the way you the way I connected with my vocals and my playing and the songwriting and just having a great sound. It was more just honing in on that skill set. So I really felt like I just wanted to be a true musician. But the country thing was hard, going to a city school, because
Yes.
the country music was so big in the States and still is,
Yes.
that it was kind of
Yes.
like 60 at the time. I remembered reading quotes to kind of make myself feel better, and hearing that, look, 60% of at the time, some 20 years ago, of artists that were, platinum selling artists were country acts from Nashville. And they
Yeah.
had the largest fan clubs, and they amassed the biggest crowds, and they were singing in stadiums all the time and arenas, and their fans were so loyal that they could have one great album, and then they could, on the strength of that, they'd make more music, and it'd just keep going. And if you weren't either a country artist or maybe a Christian artist, or maybe you weren't appealing to, you
Mm.
had to be the next Justin Bieber, you had to appeal to
Yes.
15 to 18-year-old crowd, or a teenage driven music. If you weren't one of those
Yes.
three categories, it was pretty hard, actually. You had to really be good at your niche music. So the country thing was so popular, and I just kept thinking a lot of the time, I just really want to be in America. I really want to be over there,
Yes.
because country music didn't seem like it was taken off down under. But this is where I remember carrying my folder around with all the clipped up books inside it, and we'd all put our idols or pictures across the binder, and I had pictures of Keith Urban and Fender guitars all over mine. um, and people like pointing at them going, who's Keith Urban? And at the time I had Shania Twain on the back of that as well, and they were like, who's this chick, but she's pretty hot, the guys would say. um, so
She
the
still
image of
is, by the way.
Shania, yeah, she absolutely gorgeous, and I'm meeting her too. She's perfect skin, and she's about my height too, but yeah, even trimmer than me. She's an amazing figure. And I thought she was fantastic when I saw her live on that first world tour in the late 90s. And she'd had that hit here with If You're Not In It For Love, I'm Out of Here. So thank God that just sort of broke as I was kind of mid high school, or I was about to leave high school. And
So I
probably
wanted to ask.
if she had got that hit a few years earlier, man, I don't think they'd be yelling out "Yeehaw, you country bumpkin, Mardi Gras, go back to your Tamworth and chew on your straw hat and yeehaw." And I think I think here in this country it has, there's certainly, it's paved the way. Having great imagery and crossover music, where you've got multiple types of genres that you're building influences on, and kind of shaping your music so that you can, yeah,
So
you
what's your
can appeal
what's
to a
your
bigger audience.
so what's your opinion on that, Tina? Like, I think we've talked about this before, because I'm always interested to hear from your side, because at the start you were singing country and western songs, and I've also did some
And your
research
dad
that.
likes to line dance to those too. Don't you
Yeah,
forget
come
that.
on, just keep that little quietly, actually.
Oh, okay. Oops.
No, 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 no. He's fine. He's fine. He's actually just got back into it. So good on your
Oh, that's
dad.
that's
Eh,
brilliant. Well done. Yay.
yeah, he's got back into it, and he's doing it again. So
Oh,
cheers to
Mr.
your dad.
McGuire, you're awesome. Cheers.
I'll see you soon. But
Hey,
a golden guitar at the
golden
country western
guitar.
for best new talent in '97. But like,
And a
congratulations,
nomination for ARIA at
Aria.
the 98 ARIAs, where I was nominated for Best Australian Country Release with Keith Urban, with Troy Cassadaly. Who else was in the category? I believe it was Casey Chambers and Tanya Kernigan, perhaps. And oh no, sorry, we had Graham Connors. And out of the five of us, Graham Connors won for The Road Less Travelled, which is arguably probably one of the best songs, I think, for me. I loved that song. I thought he had probably one of his strongest songs, um, for that album, that period of time. But yeah, I was sitting next to Keith at the Arias that year, and we
Wow.
had our commiserations later, and had a few drinks and a couple of hugs and nice happy snaps, and got some beautiful memories. And Molly Meldrum was there with us too, so we got some photos with
Oh,
Molly.
Molly,
We
what a
got
legend.
photos with the guys from Savage Garden at the time. Were winning all these awards. My goodness. And I'm trying to think. And
Very
Kylie
popular.
Kylie Minogue was there as a
Oh,
guest
Kylie. Our
presenter.
Kylie.
So I saw our Kylie, and of course she is iconic, everyone, and she is a pint-sized rocket. Oh my God, I had stilettos on, and she was well under my armpits, and I'm only, God, what would I be? 5'6"? Like I'm not that big. 5'6", yeah, probably. So yeah, she's weenie and just so tiny, itty bitty, and gorgeous. So look, having, like I said before, a great sound image is
Mm,
really important, and that's probably something again that I enjoy, to try and hone that, still honing it, because I suppose you want to display yourself at a different point in your life a certain way. I mean, look at the late George Michael. He had everyone with that whole "Gotta Have Faith, Faith, Faith" album, where he's got the aviator glasses on and the cool hairdo and the leather jacket and the Gibson acoustic guitar, and he's swishing around. And then he was burning up images in his next video shoot, and wanting to get rid of that image altogether,
all right.
because he was over that look. He'd done it enough, but everyone was buying that image and loved that, and probably didn't want to let that go. So as an artist, it's brave to kind of tweak that and change that, but you want your audience to grow with you as well. And I would think they would expect, uh, you know, uh, I don't know, Britney Spears to look different now that she's closer to our age.
Yes.
She can't keep dancing in the same things she wore in Mickey Mouse
Yeah, that's
Club.
right.
So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, she could try.
yeah, yeah, well, she'd still dance the pants off like she could.
Yeah.
She's an amazing performer, dancer. Um, yeah,
But
there
Tina,
you go.
what I wanted to ask you was about that. Like you started in country and western, and then when Shania Twain come out, it was like the whole country pop. Do you think that that was a bit of a backlash from like the original, like the people that just like the country and western sort of like original sort of music?
Definitely for the Australian country market at that time, I was going to be kind of focusing on being Australia's version of, say, Shania. But
Right.
that's the thing with me. I think when that album of mine wasn't released, I then really wanted to, I just kept asking the heavens, where's my place in music when things weren't sort of locking in and happening. And
Mm.
I'm still, in a way, asking, where's my place in music? So I'm just focusing now on just enjoying making music and getting really creative. And I want to spend more time doing music again. And I'm going to never let that go. It's so important.
Yes.
Um, yeah, more important than I realized. And I think, if only I could go back in time and tell my younger self that. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Yeah, I'm just grateful that I'm reinvigorated at the moment, like your dad is with his dancing. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
but
the other thing.
but this country, back on that subject a little bit
Mm,
more.
mm,
Yeah, at the time probably wasn't as ready for the album that I wanted to do. I think if I was 4 or 5 years later with that idea, it would have kind of stuck. But you never know these things, and my I just have to kind of go to myself, well, I really want to, I just want to find me, and whatever I do release, I want to be just so proud of it that it's not
yes.
kind of, I'm not just selling out or
Yes.
giving up a big part of myself. That will be scrutinized once it, critics listen to it, or better still, it's just each individual person that hears it. what they have to think. So I got to scrutinize it so much that I've just got to feel like I believe in it and I love it, and that's probably as much scrutinizing as you should do, really. If it just feels like it hits the spot and you just feel like, wow, I it just feels that this was everything just come together and it just fell into place and there wasn't as many roadblocks, then just keep going with it. That's probably the right way to go. But look, I
But
had
that's
to be
the
true to myself. I had to be true to myself. I didn't want to put a tag on me and say this is what I am, when
yes.
I was multiple genres, because I told you earlier, Craig,
Mm.
I loved hearing Mum's collection of, like I said, Bowie, Rolling Stones. That was one of my earliest songs I think I learnt, was like the Beatles. There was like a medley that they did, Stars on 45, with Beatles songs, and there was a Baby
Nice,
You Can
nice.
Drive My Car.
Yes.
And then I was singing as a like 2, 3 year old. I can't get no satisfaction. Oh yeah, and I'm singing all that, and then in the middle of that, loving Olivia Newton-John, just because I just thought she was just so goddamn beautiful and mesmerizing as a kid. I just wanted to keep watching the video clips and hear that beautiful music, and she always had wonderful producers that she worked with. So Livy surrounded herself in some great musicians, and I
Yeah.
know when she's come to the Hunter Valley and done some concerts, and Chong Lim brought quite a large orchestra, and she sang with uh,
Oh wow.
John Farnham. Again, a great name, great the voice, but
Oh,
the rest of the
Johnny
world
Farnham.
doesn't know Johnny Farnham. But oh
The
my God, what a
reunion,
voice!
the reunion farewell reunion tour. It
Yeah,
seems
yeah.
like it seems like he's having the reunion tour for the last 20 for the last 20 years. But what a voice.
I
And
know,
he,
but then because of where I am situated in the Hunter Valley, and it is a mecca for wine, because
mm,
that's some of my biggest passions now coming together, is the wine and music. Um, Sir Elton John's been up and done a couple of shows in our valley, and
did
attracted.
you see his movie?
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie yet. No, is it great? Have
Oh.
you seen it?
I did. I watched it. I did like it. It's a musical. It's a musical about his whole career, and it's all his most popular songs,
Oh,
and
so
just
it's
about
not
it.
acted out like the Queen
No,
movie. No. Wow. Well,
no.
it had to be
It's
different
a
to that.
yeah, of course, and it
Yeah.
come out around the same time. So, but you'll definitely like it. Yes.
Great. Awesome. Yes. Well, he rave reviews. Everyone loved the show. That he's still performing with the same drummer that he's had, I think, for the last 40 odd years of touring, or 50 years
Right.
of. Yeah, they're getting on. But yeah, yeah, and it's reminiscent of, again, back to the Hunter Valley, when the Rolling Stones came to our area just before their last gigs of their very last world tour, and that was one of the best live shows, Craig, that I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
That Rolling Stones gig, it was 5 years ago,
Yeah.
um, and I can still feel it like I was there yesterday. It's just burnt
Right.
an image into me. And what it taught me was rock and roll, because you've got little Charlie there, like a metronome on that kit. And then you've got the boys just blaring. I mean, even when Mick picked up an acoustic dreadnought guitar, and he's wanting to push ahead when he's playing and singing. And as a singer as well, when you're live, it's just natural to want to use that energy. And you kind of, because you're fluttering inside, your adrenaline's increasing, so you want to push and go harder, faster, usually. But Charlie was there, and Ronnie Woods as well. They were all pushing the beat, and they were just, they
Locked
felt
in.
so far forward. But
Yeah.
then Charlie, Mr. Little Metronome, he's winding them back. So it was this constant push pull effect, where all the guitar playing and Keith Richards, everyone's ahead of the beat. Then all of a sudden they come back a little to meet Charlie. Otherwise they're too far out, and they'll feel that. But then they want to push forward again. And it was this constant feel of I don't know. It's just powerful what those boys created, and the fact that they've performed together for such a long time,
Yes.
you can't deny just how the synchronicity of that they know who's going to do what, and they feel it. But because of that whole performance angle of that, we're going ahead of the beat now, we're pulling back a little. That was really special, and that made all the old material that they've been doing, the classics they've been doing forever, feel fresh and new
Fresh.
again.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I hope I'm putting
And
that into the right words, but
no,
that's just how my little
no,
brain got it.
it's
Yeah.
it's great because and that's what the longevity of that band. They're always trying to create new things, and they would have some sort of country and western feel to it as well. So that's what I'm saying. Like the bands that have been around for such a long time that have been successful, always have to, the good bands are always reinventing themselves, and even like my band, Metallica. I mean, they played thrash metal for, 5 albums of just pure metal. And then all of
Wow.
a sudden it's like, you know what? We've got successful, I'm going to do what, let's try something new. Let's try something different. And they
Wow.
did, and they started influencing blues and jazz and like not so much they would have that sort of metal, but all these other things, and they went up and down, and they had like a symphony, and they're still going strong, nearly 40 years later. So it's yeah. Doesn't matter, people try and pigeonhole like a certain band. Oh yeah, they're rock and roll, or they're the Rolling Stones. They're all different styles. So yeah, but I guess society wants to. You've got to be in one sort of genre. So very
Yeah,
very
but
interesting.
it's like building a set list too. You don't just start with all your thumpers and you've got no closers. You've got to
That's
have this
right. Yes.
range of movement as well. So that color and that movement means bringing in other different color instruments for other songs. I've changed different
Mm.
guitars in my live show as well, so that we achieve these different musical moments. Yeah. But
With
what are we
with
going to
your
do when? Yeah, yeah.
So I was going to ask, like, speaking of like your set list at the moment, I mean, you've been playing music for so long now. How do you put a set together? Do you put just originals? Are you putting covers? Are you sort of, how do you sort of do that?
Well, for the outfit that I am playing in currently at the moment,
Yes.
and we're a three-piece all-girl band.
Mm.
We've got Libby Jones on drums, and I've been saying to our audiences that she's the best female drummer, in my opinion, in all of the Southern Hemisphere, because I'd never met anyone in
Wow.
Australia that plays like Libby. So I just thought I have to put her way up in the heavens and give her this
Why?
amazing,
Why is that?
because,
Why, Tina?
well, for Lib, beautiful technique. It's
Yeah. Just a
her
feel, like a good
technique,
feel.
her feel,
Mm.
and she loves rock, and she loves a,
Right.
a big range of rock classic material that probably spans over from really the late 70s to probably the 90s. So we're kind of harking back to songs we grew up with,
Yes.
on in rock circles as well, and just classic standards. So yeah, I just love her approach. She's the happiest drummer you've ever seen too. She just is joyous about what she does, and she hits so hard, kind of like as hard as I'm
I love it.
thrashing down on my guitars too. So there's just an incredible amount of passion, energy, high octane. We're fun. We just love flipping our hair around and just moving around the place, and just being really, getting that good eye contact with the audience, and just and then getting into our own headspaces where we just pull the energy of the crowd into what we're doing at the moment as we get lost in a solo. and we just. And then we laugh at the end of the songs. We look over at one another and we yes, it felt great because
But
we just have
that's
this
the thing.
musical connection.
Yeah, no pressure, no
So
pressure. You're up there having fun. You're not out there to like an image thing, where previously you probably might have been, but now it's just relax. You make a little mistake. Oh, that's all a part of the live process. But that's great to hear that you're having
yeah,
lots of fun. And then
yeah,
who is
no,
the
no,
bass?
thank you. And our
And who
bass
is the bass
player
player?
is her name is Emma Cagney. So
Okay.
Em is yeah, she's on bass, and I talked to Em some 10 years ago about we toyed with the idea in the background of our minds because we've just had a wonderful friendship over that period of time. But the first night I met Em, we just didn't want to stop talking to one another, and we just had all this stuff in common, and she just loves music, and we met through a musician friend, my good mate Peter Hall, who's one of the head national managers of Sennheiser Australia.
Right.
So I've worked with Peter. We've been in duos together, and yeah, done a lot of performances over the years. But yeah, he's using his musical gifts in different ways now, obviously. Um, but yeah, we got to meet Em through Pete and another mutual singer friend of ours as well, Alicia. So yeah, I just didn't want to stop talking to Em, but it never manifested. It was kind of like, oh shit, years ago by, we were like, oh, we talked about starting a band, and it just never seemed to gel. And then Em was the one to ring me and say, we've got a lead singer, and she's gonna pull the pin on this thing that we're trying to start up, and we've got it was a 5-piece girl band at the time, and they'd done just a couple of little gigs, but it hadn't really become something yet. And she was like begging me to come and meet everyone, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm not sure that I want to do that, and I might want to just do acoustic solo kind of stuff, and I might not want to be in this band. And I put it off for a while, and I procrastinated. But I'm just really grateful that our friendship, got me to just go there, just to shut the girl up because I love her. And and I went and met everyone, and then it was just, yeah, it ate me up in a great way, where I just couldn't wait to go back to band rehearsal. Every Monday is our day, and we just kind of gel and get a vibe and work out what repertoire we want to do, and then I'd let the girls know my limitations as well, because
Yeah.
obviously growing up singing a lot of country music and different genres of kind of know a lot. If it's acoustic stuff and it's that sort of slower stuff, then I had to build my match fitness again,
Yes.
try to tackle much faster material and totally different playing styles as well. And when we lost the lead guitar player, because again, some of the girls were getting married, having kids, wanting to leave.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
I had to just keep stepping up and bringing out my guitar prowess um, that I might have not been addressing than I should have been, and it was always there. Um, and it's like it's never left me again. So it's just been great to get my hand strength back as well, because I will pass on to any listeners as well that I definitely do enjoy putting some deep heat, whether it's called that in other parts of the world,
Come
or
on.
or a doTERRA. As
Oh,
you're getting a little bit older, there's a lovely doTERRA natural, kind of emulates a deep heat cream, and it's all natural as well, with lots of essential oils that really soak into the skin. And I tell you what, because you got to make sure you're doing your hand stretches and bending your hands back the opposite way, because you start shortening your muscles and you're pulling your hands around a lot, and when you're playing a lot. So stretching out. And then I just found, when I was sleeping at night, if I just had a little bit of that essential oil rub on my wrists, I just woke up feeling so much nicer. So yeah, you
mhm.
be good to yourself. That's
Yeah,
that.
definitely.
Yeah, like get your guitars, where you've got the nice string gauges and and your fret action's not too low, it can be bad as well. You might think, oh, I'll set them all really low and they're really close to the fretboard, but then you're going to be fretting out when you're bending or when you're chording as well up the neck. Yeah, you might actually be getting a lot of rattle and hum because you're not getting your chords clean because they're too low. So I'm back to that whole very inspired by, enjoying and feeling good as well. And all of that comes across in your performance. And I'm actually playing with more confidence than I've ever played in my life. And I'm a better musician I've ever been right now. And I'm
Yeah.
just loving that. So it takes a little while to work that out. And yeah,
20
look at
years,
Metal.
20 odd years.
Yeah. Oh, and counting. Thank you, Craig.
Oh, it's probably more actually, to be fair. He started
I
before you.
know, and my dad should pick up the guitar again, and he hasn't been
Yeah.
playing. But I suppose he would, Mum, and then he became my guitar tech and wrote my charts out as well to help me
Ah,
when I was really young. So he actually was going to my music teacher and just learning how to map them out, just so technically really nice, solid, just more chord charts, but also with lots of stops and tacit parts that, obviously as a band, if I hadn't been jamming with anyone, we could give them these really solid, simple charts as well. And
yes.
and I could play with house bands because that was what was different about my growing up was it's going to be so different for young kids getting into music because in the school holidays, when you knew me with the pink guitar, I was going. I wasn't staying playing cricket
Us.
like you used to, and all the boys. And I used to love to try and play cricket with you guys, but it was
Yeah.
always hard to get a bowl or a bat. God damn it, at Plattsburgh, at Platsy. But anyway, it's the odd time I did. It was fun. Yeah, no, I just wanted to keep talking about the playing cricket bit now, but it was Dad just, yeah, learning how to step up and do all that for me, and then to drive me to in the school holidays down to Sydney. There was like Hornsby RSL and Toukley RSL, and there was the Revesby Workers and the Rudy Hill RSL, and
Yes.
all
Yes.
these old school clubs that they had a house band. You bring your little charts, you plug in your little Fender Princeton amp or whatever I was playing at the time, a PV Bandit, and your guitar in there, and you talk backstage and show them your charts a little bit, and we talk about a few key signatures or any tricky bits that might be an issue, and then you just wing it, boys, and they're very good musicians that they're schooled, and bang, you can kind of create music that way just on command, which is an odd way to do it. I think I'm just more preferring to be in my little setup, and we all know how we're all going to react, and we've got a good idea because we've played with one another more times than once.
Yes.
But that was just different as a kid to actually have opportunities to be in front of audiences, and a lot of them were more senior citizen style shows where they'd have a cheap little ticket meal thing and a glass of wine, and you could watch the band, and they bring out this guest artist as well, and it didn't cost too much, and you could enjoy music and an afternoon that way. So again, that also I think made me feel like I was 10 years older than what I really was. It kind of
Yes.
I've become a different person because I'm hanging around all these old school players and senior citizen style shows, and learning how to talk a few gags and with the compares, and do this whole variety style show. So that's a real showbiz kind of angle, and I think the showbiz angle shouldn't be squashed. It should be actually looked at, because all the classic artists, and I mean, I'll bring Keith's name up again, but I know Greg Shaw, Keith's first and foremost manager and very long-term manager of probably 10 years. And Greg did help a lot for Keith's early days of his career. He saw Keith in like a five-piece band doing like a a tribute kind of band that were going around all the big clubs, and I think the big Twin service club, ex-services club up in
Oh, yes.
Queensland. Yeah, that's where Greg walked in and just happened to see the then very young Keith Urban as the lead guitar player, just doing the odd backup vocal, and he's the lead guitar player. And then there's a chick doing, Tina Turner's songs, and there's a guy singing Rod Stewart, and that's one of these variety kind of shows to those kind of audiences I was singing to when I was a kid. But yeah, Keith having that amazing showmanship about him,
Yes, of course.
I dare say, coming from that upbringing of, well, do you want a gig or not? Hey, this is how you can go and, get some pocket money and survive and hone your craft, and was noticed then by his manager at the time, who obviously did help Keith sort of keep learning and evolving and moving to the next manager that he needed to be with, so that, Greg was with Keith when they were part of Capitol Records, and Keith earned all of that all on his own right as well. But then obviously sticking at it and eventually